you're supposed to be. Paul told the captain, in effect, don't fight it, flow with it. Paul understood this principle, that the wrongs weren't keeping him from his destiny, they were taking him to his destiny. The ship crashed on some rocks. He and all those on board swam to an island. There were a bunch of natives living there. Paul shared the good news, and some became believers. There were sick people Paul prayed for, and they were healed. It wasn't a bad break, it was a divine detour. The storm was a part of God's plan to move Paul to an island in need. And instead of fighting the wrongs, look around at who's in your life. Who can you be a blessing to? Who can you encourage? Who can you pray for? Who can you mentor? Maybe that storm was God moving you into position to impact someone else. How about putting your sword down? How about not resisting everything? Instead of fighting it, try flowing with it. God will never allow something that He's not going to use for your good. And we know God will take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for good. But what I want us to see is many things are not the enemy. God uses wrongs to move us into our purpose. If you see every setback, every betrayal, every negative thing as the enemy, then you'll live frustrated, wondering why God let it happen. Maybe I did something wrong. Or could it be, like Paul, you're in the perfect will of God, but you're on a divine detour? See, Joseph was a teenager when God put a dream in his heart that one day he would be in leadership, that he would do great things. What happened? Doors opened, good people showed up, promotion. No, his brothers became jealous and threw him into a pit. Betrayal, that was wrong. He was sold as a slave, went to a foreign country, didn't speak the language. That was wrong. He was working hard, being his best, when the owner's wife lied about him, falsely accused him. He was put in prison. Another wrong. One night the Pharaoh, the leader of the country, had a dream that he didn't understand. Someone told him that Joseph, this prisoner, could interpret dreams. The scripture says they brought Joseph quickly to the palace. All these wrongs, now he's about to meet the most powerful person of that day. He interpreted the dream. Pharaoh was so impressed, he made Joseph the prime minister of all of Egypt, second in command only to him. Notice how all the wrongs were leading to a right. Without one of the wrongs, he'd never gotten to the palace. If he'd skipped the betrayal, if his brothers wouldn't have been jealous, the whole plan wouldn't have worked. If he hadn't have been sold as a slave, if the lady hadn't lied about him, we wouldn't be talking about Joseph. All the wrongs were necessary to get to the right place. Now maybe you're having some wrongs in your life. People that didn't keep their word. The pandemic set you back. The door closed on that dream you worked so hard for. How do you know you're not a Joseph? Do you think somehow that when God was planning your life, He was having a bad day? No, those are divine detours. You are still in the palm of God's hand. Now, what you do in the detour, what you do in the wrongs, will determine whether you come out or whether you stay there. If Joseph was bitter, upset, God, I can't believe it. I know you promised me this. Why did you let my brothers do this to me? If he had been trying to get revenge, he wouldn't have made it to the right place. Joseph's attitude was, I don't like it. It's not fair, but I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to flow with it. I know God is still on the throne, and what He's purposed for my life will come to pass. Are you fighting or are you flowing? Do you have your sword out, trying to straighten people out, fix this problem, manipulate this situation, worn out, trying to get rid of the wrongs? Try a different approach. Put your sword up. Quit fighting and start flowing. That storm is leading you to your destiny. God wouldn't have allowed it if it was going to stop your purpose. If that person that walked away could stop your destiny, they would be more powerful than God. If that betrayal, disappointment, the closed door could keep you from your purpose, then it would be stronger than God. Yes, it was wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't hurtful. I know it didn't feel good, but you have to understand it's leading you to a right. It's not random, it's strategic. It's not the enemy, it's the hand of God leading you into something more amazing than you've ever imagined. Joseph said to his brothers, Genesis chapter 50, you did this for evil, but God meant it for good so I could save the Israelites. That phrase, meant it, means God put me in this position. We think God is always just fixing what the enemy does, working overtime, trying to keep up. Oh man, what happened? Joseph got betrayed? You mean his brothers threw him into a pit? What am I going to do? What'd you say? Paul's in a storm? About to lose his life? I thought he's going to Rome. Red alert, Jesus is being arrested. Like all these alarms are constantly going off. God's having to play catch up. No, God is not caught off guard. Many of these things we think is the enemy. The truth is, it's the hand of God moving us into our purpose. The wrongs are leading to a right. But if you don't know how to go through the wrongs with a good attitude, trusting, knowing that God is still in control, then you'll be frustrated. Have a new perspective. The detours aren't random, they're divine detours. No more fighting, start flowing. No more resisting, put down your sword. You can live out of a place of rest, knowing that the wrongs, the things you don't understand, they're not stopping you, they're leading you into the perfect plan that God laid out for you. A few years after I began pastoring, the church started to really grow. We needed a larger auditorium. We found this 100-acre tract of land on the freeway, about 2 miles from the other church. I talked to the owner. He said it had been on the market for over 20 years and he had never had one offer. I thought, God saved this just for us. It was perfect. The owner said, you can do your preliminary drawings and soil samples while we're drawing up the contract. There's no big hurry. Several months later, we went to close on the property. We had an 8 o'clock meeting right over here in Greenway Plaza. We showed up 7:45 in the morning. The men's secretary came out, said, I'm sorry, but the owner sold the property to someone else last night. I couldn't believe it. Didn't keep his word. I was so disappointed. I just knew that was the devil taking our property. Well, a couple of months later, we found a better piece of property. Had more space for parking. They were building a new off-ramp from the freeway to give it better access. I knew that's why the other property didn't work out. We went to close on it. Believe it or not, the same thing happened. They sold it to someone else. I was discouraged. I didn't understand it. I had to do what I'm asking